Hi, welcome to Send to Print. Today we're doing a beginner-friendly Fusion 360 tutorial. I'll show you how to use the software as we build a simple phone stand step by step from scratch and 3D print it. No complicated theory, no overwhelm. We'll just keep things simple and practical. Stick around till the end because I'll also share 10 golden habits that can save you a ton of time. If you already know your way around Fusion but still find your files breaking or getting messy, this should still help. All right, let's get started with the interface. If you are already familiar with it, feel free to skip ahead using the chapters below. Let's take a look at the toolbar at the top. This is your toolbox. You will probably spend about 80% of your time here, mostly using Create, Sketch, and Extrude. I'll explain them as we go. You can also just hover over any icon, and Fusion will show you a quick explanation. Over on the left, we have the browser. Think of this as your parts list. It organizes all your components, sketches, and bodies. And that little eye lets you quickly show or hide things. Down at the bottom, you will see the timeline. This is where things get really interesting. It is basically your time machine. You can go back and tweak parameters, group your steps, or rename them. You can even mirror or pattern features directly from the timeline. Yeah, I know, it might sound a bit weird, but I will show you how it works later. Also, check out the Autodesk Assistant in the top right. Just click that question mark icon to open it. It's actually more useful than it looks. If you don't know how to start, you can simply ask, "What can you do?" See, it can explain commands, troubleshooting, or even sketch basic shapes for you. And for the mouse controls, it's actually pretty simple. You'll get used to it in no time. Scroll to zoom, click and hold the wheel to pan, and hold shift while dragging to rotate. You can also use the view cube in the top right corner to adjust your view. One nice thing about it is that you can click faces, edges, or corners to quickly snap into standard views. And if you ever get lost, just hit the home icon on the view cube to jump back to your starting view. That is the basics. Before we moving on to modeling, I want to show you a small tool I used in almost every video. This is something a lot of people have been asking about, a screenshot app for pinning references. It lets you keep your reference images right on top of your workspace so you don't have to keep switching windows. The free version works just great, and it supports Windows, Mac, and Linux. Now, let's build something real. Let's take a look at this classic IKEA phone stand on their website. It has 2 slots for different devices, and they even provide the main dimensions. Let's use that screenshot app to pin this image so we can keep an eye on it while we work. All right, back to Fusion 360. When you start a new file, you will be asked to choose between part, assembly, or hybrid design. This is a recent update in Fusion 360. Basically, part design limits you to a single component. You can think of it like designing a single custom Lego brick. It's just one physical piece, and you are focusing entirely on its shape. Assembly design is for putting existing parts together. It's like a Lego instruction manual, which doesn't actually contain any physical bricks. It just tells each part exactly where to connect and how they move relative to each other, like rotating, sliding, or staying fixed. Finally, we have hybrid design. It gives you the best of both worlds. You get full flexibility to build one part, then another, and assemble them in the same workspace. It works just like the classic Fusion workflow. If you're just getting started, I'd recommend sticking with hybrid. It's the most flexible one. We'll start by entering the key dimensions into the parameter table. Think of it as your control panel for the whole model. This will make everything super easy to adjust later. Don't be scared by the word parameters. It's actually quite simple. Even if you are just getting started with Fusion, you should start using it right away. It'll save you a lot of time later on. First, let's define our main dimensions. Go up to the Modify menu and choose Change Parameters. Click the little plus icon to add our first parameter, length. Let's set it to 130 millimeters. Then add width at 80 millimeters. Next, height at 15 millimeters. And the first slot, width, at 14, since I was using a pretty thick phone case. The second slot at 9 millimeters. To make this phone stand more refined, we'll add a striped texture on that flat surface. So I'm adding another parameter called stripes to make it parametric. It controls how many vertical stripes fit across the width of the model. In simple terms, the higher the value, the tighter the pattern. Make sure it is set to no units. Let's set it to 20 for now. Since we now have the stand width and stripe count, we can now add another parameter called stripe width. This is the width of each stripe. It should be equal to width divided by stripes. All right, that's all the parameters we need for now. You can take a screenshot here or just grab the cheat sheet. It includes all the parameters, along with reference sketches, workflows, and the 10 golden rules at the end of this video. Just check the pinned comment or description for the link. Okay, back to our modeling. Right-click the root directory in the browser and select New Component. Let's rename it to Phone Stand. Okay, let's start with our first sketch. Go to the Create menu and select Create Sketch, then pick the YZ plane. Think of a sketch as the 2D foundation of your 3D model. Everything starts from here. Grab the rectangle tool, specifically the center rectangle, snapping it right to the origin. And enter the height parameter and the length. Yes, here you can either enter values directly or use parameters. For example, you could type 130 millimeters here, or reference the length parameter we created earlier. Now let's see how parameters actually work. Go to the parameters table and change the length value from 130 to 20. A common question here is why not just change it directly instead of going through the parameter table? Well, the reason is simple. Parameters let you control everything from one central place. If this value is used in multiple sketches or features, you only need to change it once, and the whole model updates automatically. Now, grab the line tool by pressing L or finding it under the Create menu. Draw one slot on the left and another on the right. Before adding dimensions, we will use constraints first. They are basically rules that control how your geometry behaves. Go to the Constraints menu and apply a perpendicular constraint here. Then use a parallel constraint to keep these 4 lines aligned. Finally, use the equal constraint to make these 2 lines identical. I usually start by adding as many constraints as possible before adding dimensions. For example, if I have 5 identical lines, I'd rather constrain them once instead of dimensioning each one separately. Now I'll press D for dimension, or you could find it under the Create menu. Set the slot distance from the edge to 15 millimeters. And the slot height to 8 millimeters. Since we already used the equal constraint earlier, the other side is already taken care of. Now, set the first slot width as slot 1, and the second as slot 2. Then set the slot angle to 70 degrees. Okay, I think I've done it. In the browser panel on the left under this component, you will find a folder called Sketches. This is where all your sketches are automatically organized. Before finishing, check for that small lock icon. It means it's fully constrained. If your lines are still blue, they're under constrained. We want this logic to be rock solid, so it won't break when you adjust parameters later. Okay, let's finish the sketch and rename it to Side View. Now it's time to turn this into 3D. Press E for Extrude, or find it under the Create menu. It's one of the most commonly used tools in Fusion. It turns your sketch into a 3D shape by pushing it out in space. Grab the profile we just created. And for the direction, you will see one side, 2 sides, and symmetric. One side is the simplest. It extrudes in a single direction from your sketch. 2 sides lets you extrude in both directions, but each side is independent. For this model, we will use symmetric. It extrudes equally from the center in both directions, so you only need to define one distance. For the measurement, you will see 2 ways to define it. Half length is the distance from the center to one side, while full length refers to the total width. And here for the extrude distance, you can either type in exact numbers or drive everything using parameters. Set operation to new body. You've got a few options here. New body creates a separate solid, join merges it with existing geometry, and cut removes geometry from the model. For now, we will keep it as a new body and hit OK. You can find a folder called Bodies under the browser panel. Just like sketches, bodies are another type of asset in Fusion. Every body you create inside a component will automatically be organized into the bodies folder. Now, let's rename this body to phone stand. This is especially useful when your project has multiple bodies, so you don't end up with body 1, body 2 everywhere. At this point, the core function of the stand is done. Everything from here on is about making it look more refined. Find fillet under the Modify menu, or just use the shortcut F to round off sharp edges. Select the 4 outer edges and set the radius to height divided by 2, which gives us a perfect semicircle. We'll click the plus icon to add another set, select the slot edge, give them a 1mm fillet to smooth them out. Then, let's find chamfer tool under the Modify menu. A chamfer creates a flat angled edge instead of a rounded one. Select the 2 side faces and add a 0.8mm chamfer. This actually helps reduce the elephant foot effect when 3D printing. Elephant foot is a common issue where the first layer gets slightly squished and the bottom starts to bulge outward, kind of like pressing down on soft dough. Adding a chamfer here trims that extra material, keeps the base accurate, and makes the part look much cleaner. Now we are going to add that stripe texture to the surface. The main idea is to sketch the profile of the stripes and then cut it into the phone stand. Go to the Create menu, select Create Sketch, and pick the XZ plane. Grab the rectangle tool, specifically the center rectangle, snapping it right to the origin. And enter the height parameter and the width parameter. This is the cross-section of our phone stand. Now, let's get to the pattern. Grab the line tool from the Create menu, or just press L and draw a horizontal reference line. Next, use the 3-point arc tool under the Create menu to draw the curve. Apply a tangent constraint to the top edge so everything flows smoothly. Press D for dimension and set the width to our calculated parameter, stripe width, and the height to 0.8mm. Now, we don't need to draw every stripe manually. Go to the Create menu and find Rectangular Pattern. This tool lets you repeat a sketch profile in a linear or grid pattern. Select that arc as your object. For direction, pick the horizontal line we just created. Now look at the distribution settings. You have 2 options. Extent defines the total length of the pattern from start to end. Spacing controls the exact distance between each repeated item. We will use spacing here. For quantity, type in stripes. A common question is whether this includes the first one, and yes, the quantity always includes the original shape. For distance, input stripe width. This tells Fusion exactly how far each copy should be placed from the previous one. Once you see a clean preview of the full pattern, hit OK. You see, here are so many separate gaps. To make selection easier later, I'll quickly draw a few lines to bridge the gaps. We will only use the curves and these 3 lines. So I will select the other lines and press X to turn them into construction lines. You can also just select some lines and turn them into construction lines in the sketch palette. Construction lines are reference-only geometry. They help you build and constrain your sketch, but they are ignored when you extrude. Now all those gaps are connected into a single, clean profile. This makes selection much easier later and keeps your sketch organized. Let's quickly go over the line types in the sketch mode. Solid lines are normal sketch geometry, which can be used for extrusion. Dashed lines are construction lines, which are only for reference and cannot be used to create solid features. Black lines mean the sketch is fully defined and locked in place. You will also notice this line is still blue. That means it's underdefined and can move somehow. So let's fix that. Press D and add a 2mm dimension here. Now the line turns black, that means it's fully constrained. You'll also see a small lock icon show up on the sketch in the browser, which tells you the sketch is fully defined. Finish the sketch and rename it to stripes. Now let's move on and press E to extrude and cut the stripes. Select the profile, set the direction to symmetric, and set extent type to all. This is useful because it lets Fusion extrude through everything without you needing to define an exact distance. And make sure to set operation type to cut. Now the surface is starting to look much more interesting instead of just a boring flat one. Now, instead of repeating everything on the other side, we will just mirror it. Go to the Create menu and select Mirror. You'll see Object Type with 4 options. Bodies mirrors the entire solid. Faces only mirrors selected surfaces. Features is what we want here because it mirrors the actual modeling steps, not just geometry. In the Objects field, select the Extrude feature directly from the timeline. For the mirror plane, choose the XY plane. Since we started from the origin, this plane already acts as our perfect center symmetry. Now let's look at compute type. Identical creates an exact geometric copy, but in some cases like this, it can cause alignment issues. For example, the slots may not match perfectly. You can also use the built-in AI assistant here if something is unclear. It can actually explain these options very clearly and even summarize them in a simple table. For this model, both adjust and optimized work fine. We will stick with optimized because it's the fastest option. The phone stand already looks pretty good at this point, but let's take it one step further and add some custom text to spice it up. First, we need to create a parameter to store our text. Go to the Modify menu and open Change Parameters. We are going to add a new parameter named Label Text. For the unit, select Text instead. This tells Fusion we are working with text instead of numeric values. Go ahead and enter whatever text you'd like on the stand. And make sure to keep the quotation marks here. They won't show up in the final model. Next, go up to the Create menu and select Create Sketch on the YZ plane. Now find the text tool under the Create menu and drag it out. In the text editor that pops up, we want to keep things parametric, so just enter the parameter name, label text. This means you can update your text anytime without touching the sketch. From here, you can adjust the font, make it bold or italic, and adjust the height and character spacing. For alignment, I highly recommend selecting both center horizontal and center vertical. This ensures that the text always expand outward from the center instead of shifting off to one side. To keep the text perfectly centered on the stand, we are going to use a simple but very useful trick. Press L for the line tool and draw a diagonal line. Then go to the Constraints menu and apply a midpoint constraint to snap that line's midpoint to the origin. Also, press X to convert it into a construction line. Now, if you check the browser, you'll see the sketch isn't fully defined yet. It's still blue. That's because the text box boundary doesn't automatically resize to fit the text. So press D for dimension and set the box height to the height parameter and the width to the length parameter. Now, everything looks fully defined. Okay, let's finish the sketch and rename it to label text. Now, let's bring that text to life using the Emboss tool, which you can find under the Create menu. You might be wondering, why not just use Extrude? Well, Extrude simply pushes the text straight out. On a curved surface, that can lead to uneven depth. Emboss, on the other hand, wraps the sketch onto the surface and keeps the depth consistent across it. On a flat surface like this, both tools give the same result, but we'll use Emboss anyway so you can see how it works. In the Emboss dialog, select your text sketch as the profile. Then pick the side face as the target surface. For the depth, enter 0.4 millimeters. At a standard 0.2 millimeters layer height, this gives you exactly 2 solid layers. Finally, you can choose between Emboss for raised text or Deboss for engraved text. In my testing, embossed text looks much cleaner and more premium on this stand, but feel free to experiment and see what works best for your project. Now that our design is finished, it's time to get it out of Fusion and send it to the printer. You could go to File and selecting Export to save your model. but there's a much faster way. Just right-click on your component or the root component in the browser and choose Save as Mesh. For the preparation type, select Print Utility. This is a really useful feature because it creates a direct bridge between your CAD model and your slicer. Choose your slicer from the list, set the format to STL, and make sure your units are set to millimeters. When you click OK, Fusion will automatically launch your slicer and import the model, saving you from exporting and re-importing the file manually. Now that we're in the slicer, if we hit slice right away with the model lying flat, we'll run into some issues. These areas here create overhangs. Most printers start to struggle once the angle goes beyond about 45 degrees, which can lead to sagging or messy prints. On top of that, printing it like this would also create a stair-stepping effect on these curved surfaces, leaving a rougher finish. Luckily, we can fix this easily by simply changing the model's orientation. Use the Lay on Face tool or use shortcut F. This tool lets you pick a flat surface and tell the software, make this the face that sits on the build plate. We'll select one of the side faces as the new bottom. Changing your print orientation is one of the easiest ways to improve print quality. By placing the model on its side, those steep overhangs turn into vertical walls, which are much easier to print. On top of that, printing these striped textures on the side takes advantage of the printer's layer precision, giving you crisp, clean edges without that jagged stair-step effect. This model and the Fusion 360F 3D source file are available on MakerWorld. You are welcome to download and check the source file. Through this file, you can clearly see every step of the modeling and the parameters I've used. And through the parameters table under the Modify panel, you can easily modify these parameters and customize the dimensions. Okay, send to print. Since our printer is busy doing its job, I want to take a moment to share 10 golden habits for Fusion modeling. I wish someone had told me these on day one. These habits will keep your projects organized, robust, and easy to modify later. Rule number 1. Always start by creating a new component, especially in the hybrid design mode. Think of a body as just a raw 3D shape, but a component is a smart container that holds the body along with its own origin, sketches, and design history, which keeps everything organized and makes it much easier to move, copy, or reuse. We also do this because Fusion's joints and assembly tools only work with components. They don't work on raw bodies. Rule number 2, start using parametric modeling from the very beginning. Before you get too deep into a design, go to Change Parameters and define your key variables first. You don't need perfect numbers yet, just think about which dimensions you might want to adjust later. Having that parameter table ready is like having a remote control for your entire model. Rule number 3, naming as you go. Don't leave your browser filled with Sketch 1 or Body 5. Take 2 seconds to rename things now. It'll save you minutes or even hours later. If a feature is particularly important, you can even rename it directly in the timeline. It makes navigating your model much easier. Rule number 4, keep your sketches organized. A common mistake is trying to draw everything in one giant sketch. Instead, let each sketch handle one major feature. It keeps things simple and makes it much easier to go back and modify a specific feature later. Rule number 5, always leverage the origin for symmetry. Try to build your model around the origin whenever possible. It makes tools like mirror or split much easier to use, since you don't need to create extra construction planes. Rule number 6, use constraints before dimensions. Use constraints as much as you can first, so you don't have to type in as many dimensions later. Rule number 7, use construction lines as guides. Anything that isn't part of the final geometry should be turned into a construction line by pressing X. This makes it much easier to select profiles for extrusion. Rule number 8, always aim for a fully defined sketch. Don't leave a sketch until you see black lines and the small lock icon in the browser. If lines are still blue, they can shift when parameters change, which can cause features later in the timeline to fail. Rule number 9, keep your sketches simple. Avoid adding things like fillets or chamfers in your sketch. It's much better to apply those as 3D features later. It keeps your sketches cleaner and much easier to edit. Rule number 10, master the mirror and pattern tools. If your design has repeating or symmetrical parts, only model a single section and let these tools do the rest. Okay, after about an hour of printing, we have our custom phone stand. It features 2 slots, a narrow one for a slim phone or an e-reader, and a wider one for thicker devices. And remember, you can always tweak these widths anytime in the parameter table to perfectly fit your devices. That striped texture really transforms it from a simple block into something much more refined. And take a look at the name on the side. You can customize these with names for friends and family. It's just a simple, everyday object, but adding that personal touch makes it quite special. All right, that's all for the modeling and design logic. If you found this tutorial helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe for more 3D printing designs. Let me know in the comments what should I model next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.